Welcome to Jim Rohn Treasures, where timeless wisdom blends with modern life. There is a truth most people forget. Money has never been just a game of numbers. It's a game of emotions, of fear, of the decisions you make in moments of poor clarity and pay for in the months and years that follow. How many times have you told yourself you would save only to spend because of one emotional minute? How many times have you known you needed long-term investing, but pulled out when the market only slightly shook? It's not that you lack knowledge, but that you don't understand enough about your own psychology when facing money. Money doesn't betray anyone. It simply reveals clearly who you really are: patient or impulsive, calm or panicked, disciplined or emotional. And only when you understand the psychological mechanisms behind every financial decision do you truly begin the journey toward freedom, sustainability, prosperity. In today's video, we're going to explore the 10 deepest principles of money psychology principles that can help you not only make money, but also keep your inner peace throughout the journey of building wealth. Stay until the end, because principle number 7 will completely change the way you see compound interest and even the way you see your own life. Part 1. Money is a mirror reflecting the mind. I once thought the key to wealth lay in numbers in spreadsheets and in smart investment strategies. But the farther I went, the more I realized every number begins with emotion. Money is never the problem. The problem lies in the person holding it. I've met people who earned a lot but still lived in fear, afraid of losing, afraid of lacking, afraid of not having enough. And I've met people who had very little yet lived calmly, peacefully, and confidently. What creates the difference is not income, but the psychology behind every financial decision. Money doesn't lie. It simply reflects exactly who you are. If your heart is full of fear, you will cling to every dollar and lose bigger opportunities. If you lack patience, you will choose the feeling of right now instead of the sustainability of tomorrow. If you carry the wounds of poverty, you will use money to fill the emptiness instead of using it to create real freedom. I once heard this: your success will never exceed your level of personal development. That applies to money. Your wealth can only grow as large as your mental maturity. So instead of asking, how can I make more, start with the question, who am I when money is in my hands? That question seems small, but it can open the entire truth. It forces you to look at the beliefs hidden deep within. Are you spending from need or from fear? Are you investing from vision or from emotion? And are you working for freedom or just running from the emptiness inside? Money doesn't change people. It magnifies who they already are. If you haven't mastered yourself, no matter how much you gain, you'll still feel lacking. But when you know yourself clearly, every dollar becomes a tool, not a burden. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, what is money reflecting in me right now? Because perhaps what needs to be enriched most is not your bank account, but your own mind. And to understand that more clearly, let's move to the next part, where we'll explore the invisible financial biases quietly directing every decision you make, even if you've never noticed. Part: understanding and mastering your personal financial biases. We just talked about money being a mirror of the mind. But more important is understanding why that mirror is distorted. Each of us grows up in different circumstances. Some were born during times of scarcity and learned that safety matters above all. Some watched their parents lose everything after one bad investment and since then never trusted the market again. Some grew up in stable economic times and therefore dared to take more risks than others. All those memories, those years, are deeply imprinted in your mind and become your personal financial biases. They drive how you spend, how you keep, how you invest, without you even realizing it. Those who witness price inflation tend to hold more cash. Those who saw huge stock profits tend to be more aggressive. There is no absolute right or wrong, only what aligns with each person's life story. When you realize this, you stop comparing yourself to others. You stop asking why they dare and start asking, why am I afraid? Biases aren't enemies. They are data for you to observe. They show the patterns you keep repeating. Why do you always pull out your investments when the market dips? Why do you shop more when you feel lonely? Why does someone else's success make you feel the urge to prove something? All those reactions come from unprocessed memories. And only when you stop to observe can you begin rewriting your financial story. Ask yourself, what past experiences are making me behave this way today? That question is the beginning of real freedom. Because when you understand the root, you stop reacting by instinct and start acting with intention. And here's something interesting. When you understand your own biases, you become more compassionate toward others. You become less harsh, less impatient, less judgmental. because you know everyone is acting based on their own distorted mirror. That empathy not only helps you live more lightly, but also helps you stay calm amid financial volatility. Because when you understand yourself, you're no longer dragged by the crowd. You choose your own path, and that is the beginning of sustainable wealth. In the next part, we'll talk about emotions, the invisible yet powerful force that can make you lose everything or help you multiply your wealth, depending on whether you can control it. Part 10. Mastering emotions in financial decisions. When you understand the financial biases shaping you, the next step is learning to master your emotions. Because if psychology is the root of financial behavior, then emotions are the waves that can wash away your entire foundation. I've met many people with deep knowledge who understand the markets, understand investing, but the moment a small change occurs, they panic, sell off, and lose not only money, but their confidence as well. Emotion blinds even the intelligent. And if you don't learn to recognize it, it will quietly control every important decision in your life. Look back for a moment. How many times have you spent money, not for need, but for praise or validation? How many times have you invested not for strategy, but for fear of being left behind? How many times have you made quick decisions just to escape the fear inside you? Emotion, especially fear and greed, is the greatest enemy of financial freedom. Fear makes you freeze, greed makes you rush, both pull you off balance. Remember this, don't let emotions decide your financial future. Because emotions serve you only in short moments, but finance requires the endurance of logic. When you feel overwhelmed by emotion, create space between thought and action. When you want to buy something expensive, wait a day. When you want to withdraw because the market drops, breathe and give yourself 2 days. That pause acts as a buffer, protecting you from mistakes. In finance, the winner isn't the one who knows the most, but the one who controls themselves the longest. I often tell my students, write your personal financial principles. Not to read every day, but to remind yourself when emotion rises. For example, I only invest in what I understand clearly. I do not make decisions when I'm tired, sad, or angry. I do not spend money just to impress others. The more principles you have, the less room emotion has to control you. And here's a small but powerful technique, the 5-minute rule. Whenever you feel a strong urge to buy, to invest, to prove something, stop for 5 minutes. Do nothing. Just breathe and ask yourself, where is this emotion coming from? Does it move me closer to my long-term goals? Those 5 minutes can save you from costly mistakes. Because true wealth doesn't lie in the ability to make money, but in the ability to stay calm through emotional storms. When you master your emotions, you start acting from your plan instead of reacting from your feelings. You're no longer swayed by the crowd, by news, or by others' opinions. You know exactly why you do what you do, and that makes you freer than anyone. In a world where everyone is trying to be seen, the calm person who doesn't need to be seen is the one who truly controls the game. They don't need to prove anything. They just stay on the right path. And time proves everything for them. So whenever you're about to do something just to feel better, stop. Because what you need might not be action, but stillness long enough to see what truly matters. Remember, you can't control the market, you can't control volatility, but you can absolutely control yourself. And when you do, your financial decisions will no longer come from fear, but from clarity. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into a crucial principle, living with randomness, and learning how to turn risk and luck into allies instead of enemies on your financial journey. Part 4, living with randomness when luck and risk coexist. I once believed that as long as I tried hard enough, every door would eventually open. I thought that if I worked hard, stayed disciplined, and always did the right thing, success would surely come. But life isn't that simple. I've seen people work tirelessly for a decade, yet still stand at the starting line. I've also seen people take just one step, hit the right timing, and go further than they ever imagined. At first, that was hard for me to accept. I asked myself, why don't hardworking people always succeed? But the more I experienced, the more I realized life doesn't follow a perfect equation. It's a blend of effort and randomness of planning, and luck of control and letting go. Luck is not something you can grasp. Risk is not something you can eliminate. Both exist together, and your job is not to avoid them, but to learn how to live with them. Think of life like a game of chess. You can calculate, you can strategize, but you never truly know what your opponent's next move will be. The only thing you can do is make sure you stay in the game. It's the same in finance. No one can predict everything. The market can change overnight. The stable job you have today can disappear tomorrow. So your real goal is not to win every single round, but to keep your ability to keep playing. I call that the principle of financial survival. You don't need to win big. You just need not to be knocked out of the game. Always build a margin of safety into every decision. Don't invest everything in one place. Don't let emotions overpower logic. And never believe that your success comes only from your own intelligence. Remember, humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's understanding that you don't control everything. Humility helps you be grateful for luck and respectful of risk. It keeps you cautious even when you're at the top. Because when you believe you can't be wrong, that's exactly when the biggest mistakes begin. I've seen people lose everything just because of a chain of decisions driven by overconfidence. They forgot that success is not a formula, it's a balance between risk-taking and protection, between hope and reality. Wise people don't try to eliminate risk. They simply reduce the chance of being destroyed by it. They understand that if they can survive, they can always rebuild. But if they lose everything, every lesson becomes meaningless. So give yourself a buffer both financially and mentally. That might be an emergency fund, a trustworthy relationship, or simply a calm attitude toward change. Because in this ever-changing world, the strongest person is not the one who wins all the time, but the one who can always get back up after falling. When you understand this, you'll live more lightly. You won't be overly proud when luck arrives, and you won't collapse when risk shows up. You'll know that both are natural parts of life, and all you need is enough clarity to keep moving. That is the real secret of sustainability. Not avoiding risk, but knowing you won't be destroyed by it. Next, we'll move to a very practical principle. Building a margin of safety, a system that keeps you standing firm no matter how much luck or risk comes your way. Part 1. Building a margin of safety, a system for sustainable financial protection. In the previous part, I talked to you about randomness, that luck and risk always coexist. And if you can't eliminate them, the best thing you can do is build a margin of safety for yourself. I learned this lesson in my earliest years in business. When I was young, I believed speed was everything. The faster I jumped in, the more I pushed the limits, the more I believed I'd arrive sooner than others. But then just one small market shift washed away everything I had built. That's when I realized speed only matters when you have a safe foundation. A margin of safety is not fear. It's the gap between what you can endure and what you're risking. If you live without that gap, you're walking a tightrope, and just one small gust of wind could be enough to make you fall. Imagine driving on a mountain road without guardrails. No matter how skilled you are, one small slip could be the end. The margin of safety is that guardrail. It doesn't make you go faster, but it makes sure you don't fall off the cliff. In finance, your margin of safety shows up in 3 layers. The first layer, emergency fund. This is the foundation. It doesn't make you richer, but it keeps you from becoming poor because of a single event. Set aside at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses as backup. With this buffer, you'll make wiser decisions because you're no longer driven by fear. The second layer, insurance and risk protection. Don't underestimate this. No one wants bad things to happen, but wise people always prepare in advance. You don't buy insurance because you expect misfortune, you buy it to buy peace of mind. The third layer, asset allocation. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. No matter what you believe in, always keep a reserve somewhere else, because no one knows for sure what will happen tomorrow. Diversification won't make you rich quickly, but it helps you stay rich for a long time. A margin of safety isn't just a number. It's a mindset of humility and clarity. When you think you're invincible, you're stepping closer to failure. When you think you know everything, life will give you a new lesson. I once watched a friend of mine, a young entrepreneur. He invested everything into one project because he believed big risk, big reward. At first he was right, but when the market turned, he had no capital left to get back up. The tragedy wasn't just losing money, it was losing the chance to start over. In finance, as in life, the ability to survive matters more than the ability to win big. Because as long as you're still in the game, you always have a chance to recover. I once heard this: humility is the break of wisdom. It helps you survive long enough to see the reward. And that's the true meaning of a margin of safety. It doesn't just protect you from loss, it gives you time to grow. When you're no longer constantly threatened, you can finally learn, create, and build long-term value. Remember, wisdom isn't about knowing a lot. It's about preparing for what you don't know. And your margin of safety is proof of that maturity. So don't race anyone else. Build yourself a strong foundation so that no matter how life shifts, you still stand firm and keep walking with a smile. When you have a secure foundation, it's time to look at something even deeper: contentment. Because true wealth doesn't come from what you have, but from knowing how much is enough. Part 6. The power of contentment, redefining enough. I want to ask you a very simple question. How much is enough? We live in a world that constantly pushes us to have more, move faster, and achieve even more. But very few people pause to ask, where am I actually going? I used to be like that. I worked nonstop setting higher goals after every achievement. I thought that if I had just a little more, I'd be happier, freer, more at peace. But strangely, every time I reached a new milestone, I felt empty. I began to realize people don't get exhausted from working. They get exhausted from not knowing when they've had enough. We keep running but don't know where the finish line is. Dissatisfaction can be a motivator, but if it's not managed, it becomes a bottomless pit. Because there will always be someone ahead of you. There will always be another level to climb. And when you let the world define what enough means, you will never be enough. I've seen people get rich very quickly yet not become any happier. Their wealth increased, but their soul became poorer. Because they only knew how to add more and forgot to stop and feel. Wealth is a number, but prosperity is a feeling. And that feeling only comes when you know how to set limits on your desire. Contentment doesn't mean you stop moving forward. It means you no longer have to prove your worth through your results. You still strive, but you're not obsessed. You still move ahead, but you're not afraid of falling behind. You still work hard, but you do it from conviction, not comparison. I believe the truly strong person is not the one who has the most, but the one who clearly knows what is enough for themselves. Because they're no longer pulled around by the world, they know when to stop. Each morning I spend a few minutes writing down what I'm grateful for. Sometimes it's just a hot cup of coffee, a good friend, or a day of good health. When you train your mind to see what you already have, you crave less of what you don't have. You also need to stay away from things that steal your peace. Conversations that force you to prove yourself, environments that make you feel like you're never good enough. Don't let others define your worth. Set your own standards, not based on fame or assets, but on the level of peace inside you. When you know what makes you feel grounded, what makes you live true, and what you're willing to say no to in order to protect that, you become truly free. I've realized the goal of life is not to have more, but to become more. To become deeper, calmer, more grateful, and happier with what you already have. Happiness doesn't come from your account balance, but from the feeling of freedom in your mind. To choose how you live, to know what matters, and to be able to stop without feeling afraid. Remember, the one who knows enough is not someone who lacks ambition, but someone wise enough to guide that ambition. When you know how much you need, you'll always have more than enough. But if you don't, no matter how much you have, it will never feel like enough. So take a moment to pause today. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, am I living to feel or just running to chase? If the answer makes you smile, it means you've started to understand the power of contentment, and that is one of the first signs of true freedom. When you understand what enough means, it's time to talk about an even more miraculous principle: compound interest, the reward reserved for those who are patient and persistent over time. Part key. Compound interest, the reward of time and discipline. There is a principle I believe anyone who understands it and applies it long enough will change their life. That is compound interest. But not just in money, in every area of life. Compound interest is the reward of perseverance. It doesn't show up immediately. It's not loud, not flashy. It just quietly grows little by little every single day. I've learned that successful people don't necessarily do extraordinary things. They just do ordinary things for an extraordinary length of time. You can start with a very small amount, a small habit, a small action, a single right choice each day. And then after enough time, those little things add up into what others call luck. I still remember my younger days when I first started saving. The amount was far too small to make a difference, but I kept going because I understood I wasn't just accumulating money, I was accumulating discipline. And one day I realized what was growing wasn't just the number in my account, it was my character. I had become more patient, calmer, and wiser in every decision. That is the true power of compound interest. It doesn't just multiply your money, it multiplies who you are. If you exercise every day, the result doesn't show up after a week, but after a year. If you study every day, wisdom doesn't appear instantly, but 5 years later, you'll find yourself on a completely different level. In the same way, if you spend time each day reading, investing, working on yourself, you won't see anything special today, but you'll be amazed at yourself 10 years from now. Compound interest doesn't require talent. It only requires time and consistency. But because it isn't fast, most people quit halfway. They want results right away. And when they don't see them, they change direction, start over, then give up again. They lose the miracle right before it's about to bloom. I once told my students, there is nothing more powerful than the power of consistency. Because when you stay committed long enough, every small thing becomes great. A seed today can become a forest tomorrow. And in finance, that law is even more true. Small savings today will become great freedom tomorrow. Every dollar you set aside for the future is a piece of energy you send out to work for you. That's when money starts working on your behalf. But compound interest only exists if you respect time. Don't rush, don't get discouraged, don't measure results after just a few weeks or months. Time is the only factor you cannot buy, but you can leverage. If you stay loyal to a habit, a principle, a strategy, don't be quick to ask, when will I see results? Ask instead, am I patient enough to see the miracle unfold? Because compound interest only comes to those who don't give up. It is the reward for trust and discipline. I've lived long enough to know every great success comes from small actions repeated. No giant leap is truly sustainable. There are only small steps, steady ones taken day after day. If you're at the starting line, don't underestimate your small steps. Keep planting seeds, watering them daily, and trust that one day life will pay you back with a harvest you never imagined. Let compound interest become a life philosophy, not just a financial formula, because it teaches you to trust the process and to know that every effort you make today is quietly creating a greater version of you. When you understand and apply the law of compound interest, it's time to talk about the next step, how to save and use money as a tool for freedom instead of a burden. That is the power of the principle of smart saving. Part 8, saving the secret weapon of flexibility. After you understand the power of compound interest, you'll realize one thing: what matters is not how much you earn, but how much you keep. I've seen many people who are great at making money yet never truly get ahead, because every time they earn more, they increase their spending to match it. And so they spend their whole life in a loop: earn more, spend more, then start again from zero. As for me, I learned the lesson a bit earlier. Freedom doesn't come from income. It comes from your ability to control your desires. When you know how to save, you're buying yourself flexibility. Savings are the space that gives you options. They're the cushion that lets you say no to what doesn't fit and yes to what truly matters. I remember when I was young, I was in debt and had to say yes to everything, every job, every request, every opportunity, even when I didn't want to. Not because I liked it, but because I had no choice. And that is the worst feeling, to live without the power of choice. From that moment, I promised myself I would no longer let money control me. I would control it. And I started with the smallest thing: saving. Every time I received money, I didn't spend first and save what was left. I did the opposite. I paid myself first. Whether 10% or just 5%, I kept that habit as a non-negotiable rule. Not because that small amount could change my life immediately, but because it was shaping my character. Saving taught me discipline. It taught me patience. And most importantly, it taught me to delay short-term gratification to gain long-term freedom. Because when you have reserves, you no longer make decisions from fear. You don't have to keep a job just for the money. You don't have to act against your values just to survive. You can say no to what isn't worthy of you. And that is the true power of saving. It doesn't lie in the number, but in the freedom it brings. Many people think saving means living miserably. But to me, saving is the art of prioritizing. I don't cut out joy. I simply choose joys that truly matter. I don't refuse life. I refuse wastefulness. If you never learn to keep, all your effort to earn loses its meaning. You can make a mountain of gold, but if you don't know how to protect it, that mountain will melt away through every thoughtless choice. I've often told my students, saving doesn't mean you lose something. It means you're buying peace of mind for the future. And indeed, every dollar you keep today is a piece of freedom you're storing up for tomorrow. A person with savings looks at the world differently. They are calmer, they are less afraid, they are not pressured into rushed decisions. That's why I call saving a secret weapon. No one sees it, but it allows you to live more freely, more confidently, and more wisely. Start even if you don't have much. Save $1, then 10, then 100. What matters is not the amount, but the consistency. Because once this habit becomes part of you, everything else in your life will gradually shift as well. Saving helps you not only control your finances, but also control yourself. And when you master yourself, money no longer rules you. You start using money as a tool to live by your values instead of living to serve money. When you know how to use money to buy freedom, the next step is even more meaningful: taking control of your time, because time is the most precious currency you have. Part David. Control over time, the highest return on freedom. After many years of teaching about finance and success, I realized a simple truth that few truly understand. The ultimate purpose of money is not to have more, but to gain control over your time. I've seen many people who earn a lot of money yet live like slaves. Not because they are poor, but because they no longer have time for themselves. They work 14 hours a day, eat in a rush, sleep in anxiety, and spend money to compensate for the hours they've lost. They have wealth, but not freedom. And that is the greatest paradox of our time. I believe the true measure of wealth is not your account balance, but how many hours a day you are free to do what you want. If you can wake up without being forced, if you can choose the work you love, if you can spend time with the people who matter to you, that is the highest return money can buy. When I was young, I used to trade time for money. I thought if I just worked hard enough, I'd soon be able to rest. But the more I worked, the more I realized time waits for no one. You can't save time the way you save money. You can only choose how to use it. Money can be lost and earned back, but time lost is gone forever. And the sad thing is most people only realize this when it's too late. I've seen parents spend their whole life working for their children's future, only to discover when their children grow up that they themselves are no longer part of that future. That's why I always say use money to buy back your time. Don't use time to buy more obligations, because the true value of wealth lies in the ability to live each day by your own choices. When you have control over your time, you no longer live in constant rush. You know when to work and when to rest. You know how to spend time with the ones you love and also how to spend time with yourself. Time is the fairest currency in existence. Everyone is given the same 24 hours, but only a few know how to invest it wisely. Smart people don't try to extend their workday, they try to extend the meaning in each hour they live. And interestingly, when you learn to manage your time, money naturally follows, because you're no longer swept up in meaningless activities. You invest your time in creating value, in learning, in personal growth, and those are exactly the things that open the door to true prosperity. I've told my students, time is the highest return you can ever earn, because money only buys material things, but time gives you the freedom to live on your own terms. If today you're so busy that you have no time for yourself, pause and ask, am I working to live or living only to work? If the answer leaves you silent, it's time to adjust. You don't need a drastic change just 30 minutes a day for something that makes you feel truly alive. A book, a meal with loved ones, a quiet moment alone. Those are the emotional investments that yield the most lasting return. Because if you don't control your time, someone else will. And then, no matter how much you have, you're still working for someone else's schedule, someone else's goals, and someone else's dreams. So start today by taking back control of each hour of your life. That is not just a financial lesson. It's a lesson in freedom. When you've taken control of your time, when you've slowed down and begun to enjoy each moment, you'll be ready for the final part of this journey, being rich from the inside out, where wisdom, emotions, and finances become one. Pardicit. Mature wisdom, true wealth, starts from within. I've lived long enough to understand this money has never been the real problem. It's only a mirror reflecting a person's inner state. You can earn millions of dollars, but if your mind isn't mature, you will still live in worry and fear. On the other hand, someone who understands their own value, even with little, still feels at peace because they know they are in control of their life. True wealth doesn't start with the number in your bank account. It starts with the quality of your thinking. Because money simply amplifies who you already are. If you lack discipline, money will make you more indulgent. If you have wisdom, money will become a tool for you to create value. Many years ago, I once asked myself a question: why is it that some people become calmer the more successful they are, while others become more anxious the richer they get? And I realized the difference lies in mature wisdom. Mature wisdom doesn't come from age, it comes from the ability to see the world through your inner lens. When you learn to observe yourself, to understand your emotions, to understand what drives you, you're no longer controlled by money or fame. A person who is not yet mature uses money to prove their worth. A mature person uses their worth to create money. And those are two completely different journeys. I've met many intelligent people who lacked inner peace. They knew how to earn, but not how to live. They had goals, but no direction. They achieved success, but lost themselves in the process. True wealth is when you can sleep peacefully every night knowing you have lived true to your values. It is when you no longer need to boast, because the quiet in your soul is loud enough to speak for everything. I've witnessed many people completely transform when they began this journey. When they understood that money is only a small part of the life system. When they reordered things as mindset, habits, actions, results. That order is never wrong. You cannot have financial freedom if your mind is still chained by fear and comparison. You cannot be truly rich if you live every day in a sense of lack. Wealth is not about what you have, It's about how you feel about what you have. I want you to understand this deeply. Money will never bring lasting happiness. Only meaning can do that. And meaning only comes when you know who you are, where you're going, and why you do what you do. When you start to see money as a tool instead of a goal, everything changes. Money becomes a companion, not a harsh master. You start using it to help others to create value, to live more freely, instead of using it to prove that you are enough. I call this mature wealth, where finances, emotions, and wisdom become one. Where you can earn money without losing yourself and use money without losing your peace. If you truly want to become wealthy, don't start by asking, how can I have more? Start by asking, who do I need to become to deserve that wealth? When you change who you are, everything around you naturally changes as well. That is the law of life, and it is also the greatest lesson I've ever learned. Wealth is an inner journey. It begins with awareness, passes through discipline, and ends in peace. When you reach that point, money is no longer the goal. It is just the trace left by a life lived with meaning. And then you'll understand freedom doesn't come from having more, but from needing less and living more fully with what you already have. I've lived through enough years to understand this true wealth doesn't lie in your wallet. It lies in how you think and live each day. Money can buy comfort, but it cannot buy peace. Money can bring you fame, but it cannot replace inner worth. And if your mind is not yet mature, you will use money to hide your fears instead of using it to build freedom. Success is not the result of luck, but the consequence of discipline and awareness. You cannot build sustainable wealth if you let emotions control your actions every day. And you also cannot be at peace if every goal only revolves around money. I've seen far too many people earn a lot yet not become any happier. Because they forget this, the purpose of making money is to live in a way you believe is right. True wealth is when you can sleep peacefully every night knowing you have lived true to your values. When you can give without fearing, laugh and smile when you look back at the road you've traveled. If you want your life to change, don't ask, how can I have more? Ask, who do I need to become to deserve it? Because once you change as a person, everything else will change accordingly. Wealth is not a destination, it's the natural result of a mature and grateful mind. When you master yourself, you will master your finances and ultimately master your own freedom. Thank you for walking with me on this journey. If you believe that freedom begins from within, please like, subscribe, and share this video to spread Jim Rohn's timeless wisdom to more people. And leave a comment below which lesson today makes you want to change. Right now, I'll read them all and see you in the next videos.